How many of you have ever heard of the word inference before? Or like, what can you infer? Have you heard that word before? No. It's really kind of like we're going to be detectives today. And whenever we want to make an inference or we want to infer, it's really that we're just detecting. We're going to be like solving a mystery. So it's, oh, this isn't working, Mrs. Wedemeyer. Oh, because it's not on. Hang tight. There we go. So an inference is really just a smart guess or conclusion that you make based on the clues that are provided and what's not directly stated, but that you already know. So it's like you take your background knowledge, your already brilliant ideas, and then you take the clues from the text or the mystery, and you put those together, and you can make a conclusion. You can make an inference. So we can use the text, we can use our prior knowledge, we can use just our logic and reasoning and common sense to help us make inferences. So let's try a super simple one. You come home to find muddy footprints leading from the front door to the kitchen. You then see a chair pushed over and cookie crumbs on the counter. Based on these clues, what can you infer?
That somebody's eating cookies.
Somebody's eating cookies.
Maybe your dog got to the cookies.
Oh, you think it might be a dog? Why would you say that? There was nothing about a dog in there.
Because if it's muddy footprints, and dogs normally play in the mud.
Ooh, you know what she just did? Riley just made a great inference. She took her own background knowledge, puppies play in the mud, dogs like cookies, and she made this conclusion, right? She drew this conclusion. That's exactly what an inference is, or when you infer. So it's kind of like a prediction, but not exactly. Predictions are educated guesses that we can often make, we can often confirm or disprove if we keep reading long enough, right? So we say, I think this is going to happen next. And then we keep reading and we find out it did happen or something else happened, right? So making a prediction is like an educated guess. Inferencing is similar to that. It's a theory that you form after analyzing the text or the clues along with your background knowledge. The solution is not always offered, so if we keep reading, it doesn't necessarily tell us, like in a prediction. It's more like we do deductive reasoning. So detectives take the clues and they deduce what happens. They like bring it down and then they solve the crime, right? So it's more like we're doing that, deductive reasoning. Okay, so we can do this in a really simple kind of first grade way, or we could do this in a stepped up third grade rock a sea mask kind of way. You ready to know how to do that? Right? Because when we predict, we can make it really simple, or we can level it up and make it better and explain our thinking, and that's what we're going to do today. So let's make it a little bit harder. You ready for a little bit harder?
Yeah.
Okay. One night, while staying at a friend's house for a sleepover, Mia heard a strange sound coming from the backyard. It sounded like rustling leaves and soft footsteps. Mia's friend Emily was already asleep, so Mia decided to investigate on her own. As Mia quietly peeked through the curtains, she saw two shadowy figures moving near the backyard fence. The figures seemed to be carrying something, but it was too dark to see clearly. Mia listened carefully and heard faint whispers and sounds of digging. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, what can you infer from that story? Be detectives, use some deductive reasoning. What do you think?
I think it's another dog because like dogs dig a lot.
Oh, you think it could be, dogs do dig. What do you think?
I think it's a fox because fox digs and they're and they're kind of sneaky.
Oh, foxes dig and they're kind of sneaky. And this was a little sneaky. What do you think?
I think it's squirrels on the fence.
Whoever was on the fence? Oh, and now they entered?
Yeah, now they're digging up to make a hole.
Oh, what do you think?
I think it is like maybe it's like some two people like maybe they're her mom and dad
Oh.
coming and like maybe like they're like digging up like one of their like castle things where they have like
Ooh, or a treasure?
yeah.
She thinks maybe it's the parents that are back there digging burying a treasure. One more. What do you think?
I think that it was a dog chasing a squirrel. That was the rustling leaves part. But like before that, the dog was just digging.
Awesome. So we have dogs, foxes, parents. Anybody think it's a bad guy?
Squirrels.
You guys are all like so positive, such optimists. Okay, so here's the formula. If we're going to just make an inference, we could say, I think it was a dog because dogs like to dig. And probably a first or second grader could do that, right? What we want to do is really level that up or step up our inference and explain it. So step number 1 is we're going to create a theory statement. What our theory is. So I did this one on my own at home. Here was my theory. You guys are way nicer than I was. I said, Mia just witnessed a crime being committed in her friend's backyard. My theory is that it's a crime. And I'm going to write it in a complete sentence. But now I want to level up. I want to explain, which a lot of you did. You said because dogs dig, because parents might be burying something special. So now I'm going to give another sentence where I offer an explanation. The people were doing something wrong because they snuck through the fence under the cover of night and were whispering. So my background knowledge is if you sneak into somebody's backyard at night and you're whispering, you do it under the cover of dark. They didn't just like knock on the door and be like, hey, can we go to your backyard? They did it. They snuck in there at night, right? So I'm going to offer an explanation of why my theory. Then I'm going to cite the text. And I noticed that you guys are already doing race and proving it with text support, right? So now I'm going to do that exact same thing. I'm going to say the text says, oh, look, the text says, according to the text, the people were carrying something and they began digging. And then I'm going to restate my inference one more time. Whatever the people were doing, it was probably not legal and Mia should get help. Do you see how if I just follow that formula, I'm going to share my theory in a complete sentence, explain it, text support, and restate it? I just wrote like this really great paragraph by just following. I just did a race response, which you guys have been working on. Okay, you want to try it with a real text? Has anybody ever read Hatchet? It's one of my favorite books. It is so great. This is the opening chapter. Watch. It's a lot. I'll just read it to you. In the summer, Brian would live with his father. In the school year, with his mother. That's what the judge said after looking at papers on his desk and listening to the lawyers talk. Talk. Words. So this first summer, when he was allowed to have visitation rights with his father, Brian was heading north. Now the plane lurched slightly to the right, and Brian looked at the pilot. He was rubbing his shoulder again, and there was a sudden smell of body gas in the plane. Brian turned back to avoid embarrassing the pilot, who was obviously in some discomfort. Must have some stomach troubles. So this summer, Brian was heading north. His father was a mechanical engineer who designed or invented a new drill bit for drilling oil. He was working in the oil fields of Canada, up on the tree line where the tundra started and the forests end. Brian was flying up from New York with some drilling equipment. It was latched down in the rear of the plane, next to the fabric bag the pilot had called a survival pack, which had emergency supplies in case they had to make an emergency landing. Riding in a bush plane with a pilot named Jim, or Jake, was something who had turned out to be an all right guy, letting him fly and all. Except for the smell. Now there was a constant odor, and Brian took another look at the pilot, found him rubbing his shoulder, down the arm now. Dead left arm, letting go more gas and wincing. Probably something he ate, Brian thought. Okay, so the scene is, he's alone in this tiny plane with this pilot. And they're taking drill bits and stuff to his dad, but he gets to spend the summer with his father. What do you think Brian is thinking and feeling about his current situation? So some people would be like, I don't know, the author didn't tell me. We don't know what he's feeling. But we can infer what he's feeling based on what the text said and what we already know. So somebody make an educated guess. What do you think Brian is thinking and feeling?
Maybe disgust because of the smell.
I would be disgusted because of the smell. What do you think?
Nervous.
Why would he be nervous? And he is alone with one other human, and that human seems to be ill. Yes, I would be nervous. What do you think he's feeling?
Weirded out.
Kind of weirded out, a little anxious. What do you think he's feeling about his current situation with his parents?
I feel like he might be sad because he can't see both parents at once.
Oh, interesting. He might be sad because he can't see both parents at once. Did the text say that?
No, but I feel like he might be feeling that because if his dad doesn't live with his mom, that means his mom lives somewhere else.
Yeah, your background knowledge is like, well, that probably wouldn't feel great, right? Kids probably don't want their parents to get divorced. What is happening with the pilot? Make some inferences about what might be happening with this pilot. He might be getting sick.
I think he might be having like stomach problems and
He might be having stomach trouble. He might have a broken arm. It keeps talking about him rubbing his arm.
he might be scared of heights.
Oh, do you think the pilot would be scared of heights?
I mean,
Or
he's rubbing his arm, which means he's probably maybe a little bit nervous.
maybe the pilot's nervous. What do you think?
I have an infection
Ooh.
because like he rubs his arm and like there's like this smell coming.
Yeah. Something is bad, right?
Maybe he hasn't took a shower even.
Okay, so that was our inferences based on our background knowledge and what the text said. What do you think will happen next? That would be a prediction. What do you think will happen next?
I think the plane's gonna crash and Brian's gonna have to use the emergency kit.
Oh, and it did mention an emergency kit. Great prediction. Okay, what are the 4 steps? It's a formula. What do we do first?
Restate question.
Yep, and in this case, we're going to call it our theory statement, right? Because this is not necessarily like going back into the text to find the answer. This is just our theory or our inference. So we're going to make a theory, and then we're going to explain it, and then we're going to support it with text and then restate. So my theory statement for this, I'm going to do it fast because I want to get to the part where you guys get to practice. My theory is I believe Brian is struggling with the fact that his parents just got divorced, and he's flying to a brand new place to visit his father with a pilot who is most likely having a heart attack. Do you know that some of the symptoms of a heart attack is chest pain and your arm starts hurting and you have a really bad stomach? That's symptoms of a heart attack. So my theory, I believe, and guess what? We don't even have to say I believe. You can just write I believe and then cross out the I believe part. This is my inference. Brian is struggling with the fact his parents just got divorced. Did the article say that or the book say that? No, but my background knowledge is usually that's not a super happy time for kids, right? Then I'm going to explain it. Most kids are not happy or excited when their parents get divorced. Brian is also alone with a pilot who seems to be very ill. He's clearly not happy. He's struggling. The author didn't say Brian is sad and struggling, but I could infer that, and I have a reason. Then I'm going to use text support. The author stated that this was the first summer that Brian had visitation rights with his father. While Brian is sadly remembering the courtroom, he notices the pilot grabbing his arm and wincing. So I'm going to actually go back in the text and support my thinking, right? Here's my restatement. Brian is not only disappointed and overwhelmed, he is now in a plane that is about to not have a pilot. Done, done, done. Okay, if we wanted to make a prediction, we could predict what was going to happen next. And we already said, I think she's already said, my prediction is that the plane will go down and Brian will have to use a survival kit. Then I could keep reading and find out that that is exactly what happened. In this book, the pilot has a heart attack and dies. And Brian has to land the plane and survive. Who wants to read that book? It's actually it's like one of my very favorites. Okay, so now you guys are going to get to try. And Mrs. Wedemeyer told me that you're learning about Rome. So I have a story for you about 2 kids living in ancient Rome. And when you get this, go ahead and start reading it. Did I get enough? And then we're going to make an inference, but using our formula, we're going to write a really amazing paragraph. So half the battle is to know what they're asking. The other half of the battle is to be able to write about it, right? In a, did I give enough? Okay. The other half of the battle is to be able to explain your thinking. And now we have a really systematic formula for explaining our thinking. Okay, here's the story. Go ahead and follow along with me. Rome's layers. Marcus and Lucia, two adventurous Roman kids, were thrilled when they received tickets to watch an event at the Colosseum. Are you learning about the Colosseum? Do you have some background knowledge about the Colosseum? Excited chatter filled the air as they joined the crowd, entering the magnificent arena. As they found their seats among the spectators, Marcus noticed a strange pattern in the seating arrangement. The seats closest to the arena were occupied by nobles and wealthy citizens, while those further back were filled with commoners and slaves. Curious, Marcus whispered to Lucia, "Why do you think the seating is arranged like that?" Lucia pondered for a moment before replying, "Maybe it's because the closer you are to the action, the more important you are in society." Marcus nodded thoughtfully, but he couldn't shake the feeling that there was maybe more to it than that. As the event unfolded with the gladiator battles and chariot races, Marcus observed the reactions of the different groups in the audience. The nobles cheered and applauded loudly, reveling in the spectacle before them. The commoners seemed more reserved, clapping politely, but with a hint of unease in their expressions. The slaves, positioned at the farthest seats, watched silently, their faces a mixture of fascination and resignation. As the sun set on the Colosseum, Marcus and Lucia left with new questions about their world. They realized that even in moments of entertainment, there were layers of inequity and social injustice. The siblings rushed home to talk to their parents about not only the wonders of Rome, but also the underlying truths they discovered that day. Okay, so some inference questions about this story might be, how do you think that Marcus and Lucia are feeling about this based on the text? Another inference could be, why are the slaves not able to enjoy the entertainment, right? What are our four steps? What's our formula?
Restate the question.
Restate the question, and when we're doing an inference, it's actually called a theory, right? So you're right, we do want to restate the question, but we're going to make it our restating the question and telling our theory, right? What's step number 2? Anybody remember? Provide an explanation. We have to say why we think that. What's step number 3? Everybody. Text support, and then we're going to restate our theory. So let's do, if the question on our paper said, how do you think that Marcus and Lucia are feeling about this? How could we use our formula? Let's do it. Get your pencils out. You're going to write with me. So we want to restate the question and we want to state our theory, right? So what is our theory? How are they feeling? Maybe somebody new. How do you think that Marcus, what did they realize today? What realization did they come up with today at the Colosseum?
They realized that like the wealthy people were like closer to like the actual event, and then like the slaves were like at the very top.
Yeah. So their realization, what they realized today, is that people were not treated equally at the event at the Colosseum, right? How do you think that they're realizing that inequality made them feel?
Feel bad for the slaves.
Yeah, I could just write, Marcus feels bad. That'd be like a first grader could say that, right? So instead, my theory statement, I could say I believe, but I'm just going to cross that part off. Marcus and Lucy, or Lucia, go ahead and write this down with me. Is this one I can write on? Oh my gosh. Now what do I do?
Press the arrow right there.
Okay. Oh, yes. It's all coming back to me.
Any color.
Okay. Ooh, blue. Okay. Oh, I chose green. Okay, Marcus, here's my I believe, but I don't have to write it. Marcus and Lucia feel, and I want to make it even better than sad. What would be a synonym for sad? They feel depressed is a good one. Bad. Confused. Disappointed.
Empathetic.
Ooh, I love it. They feel empathetic. Wow, that's an amazing word. Meaning that they sympathize or feel bad about it, right? They understand. They feel empathetic and disappointed when they see people not, let's just say when they, instead of see, let's just say when they visit the Colosseum. Oh, here we go. I'm going to have to use a spelling strategy. Colosseum. How many syllables? Colosseum. Did I spell it right? No, one L? Okay, phew. Okay, when they visit the Colosseum. I could just leave it at that, but I'm stepping it up. I'm going to show how brilliant I am. So I'm going to explain why did they feel empathetic and disappointed when they visited the Colosseum. What was the reasoning?
Because they saw people were sad.
Yes.
They thought in the Colosseum maybe because people could die.
Yeah. Well, that too, right? I would be sad just watching the whole show, but they realized that not all people were treated equal. Okay, so I told my theory. I think they're empathetic and disappointed. I explained it. What's my next step? Provide text support. Look back in the text. Is there a part that we realize that they're disappointed? Is there a part that they realize that they might not be feeling super happy about what they realized today? What's the part of the text? Circle it for me. What's a part in the text that proves that they're feeling sad? Go ahead and circle what you think you could use as text support. You know what I noticed? When you feel sad and disappointed and maybe feel a little empathetic, who do you want to talk to about it? Your mom and dad. And who did they decide to talk to about it? Yeah, they rushed home to kind of discuss this and debrief this with their parents, right? Could we use that as tech support? Mm-hmm. We could also use that part where they're pondering why this could happen, and Marcus nodded thoughtfully. Either one of those would really work, right, as they're kind of debating. I'm going to use the tech support is, let me pick one. In the text it said, they rushed home to talk to their parents. What does the text actually say? About what? What's the last line? They raced home to talk to their parents about the truth they discovered that day. My penmanship is not the best, so sorry. Okay, so now what's my last step? What's my last step? I'm going to restate my theory. It's kind of like a paragraph has an in-topic sentence and a conclusion sentence. That's exactly what I'm doing, right? I'm just writing a paragraph. So this is basically my conclusion sentence. And I'm going to say, restate this in a different way. The siblings what?
Outstab the people that they didn't get to watch like as much as like the or they didn't get as good of as
Yeah.
the rich people did.
So in a really simple way, I could summarize that as the siblings felt sad, that's kind of like disappointment, about the inequality, right? So let's simplify that. The siblings felt sad about the inequality. Oh, that's a big word, but I could spell it. Equality. If I had said, how did Marcus and Lucia feel after their day at the Coliseum? And I just wrote, they felt bad. At 1 out of 5, what would you get that?
1.
Like a 1. If I said, how did they feel after their day in the Coliseum? And I inferred that they did this, and I did this formula, at 1 out of 5, what do you think my score would be? Definitely a 5. So if you keep practicing this and you get to where like you automatically think about those steps, money. If you can write 4 sentences to explain your thinking, 5 out of 5. Brilliant. You guys were amazing today. I'm going to head over to Mrs. Volker's class now, but thank you so much for having me.